We need Matt.
But that's all right. So why don't we at 7:32, we'll officially begin the Alternative Energy Committee meeting. We are doing this by Zoom in accordance with the Massachusetts regulations, which allow for virtual meetings. And thank you everybody for joining us. So right now we have the members of the committee plus Michelle and our liaison to the Water Commission, Mr. Girardi. Good to see you. Good to have you here. Debbie, I think will be joining us soon enough. And our speaker for today is Matthew Parent from the Marshfield Energy Committee. So why don't we, while we're waiting for Matt to join us, why don't we go through the meeting minutes? If everybody could take a look at the meeting minutes from June 16th, 2022.
Debbie's on her way in, Tanya.
Oh, good. Hi, Debbie. So Debbie,
Yes.
we officially started the meeting at 7:32.
Okay.
And then we saw you were in the waiting room. So we just asked everybody to review the minutes.
Okay.
So everybody's taken a moment to review your amazingly beautiful and complete and awesome meeting minutes. I don't know if anybody in the public actually goes and reads our minutes, but if they did, they would have a great description of what we're talking about.
I think you are, yeah, I think you are way too kind, but
No, and plenty of people do read your minutes, so you're doing a great job with them because often some committees comment about how jealous they are that your minutes are so great. So they are being noticed.
Oh, good.
nice.
All right. So as soon as somebody's ready to make, if there are any corrections or adjustments.
Well, are we going to talk about the action items in the minutes today?
We should talk about whatever we'd like to change.
Well, it seems like we were going to ask Energy Sage to provide us with a list of towns that have been using their company. Yet before we ask the select board to give us permission to work with them, or the town to work with them, yet the motion apparently to that effect was passed. So I'm a little bit confused about that.
So we passed the motion based on a recommendation to move forward with Energy Sage. But after we passed the motion, we realized that to be complete in our recommendation to the select board, we should actually reach out and contact the active companies with Energy Sage as sort of references. And when we talk about that Energy Sage research under the 5th bullet of the agenda, Pat Gooding will give an update on what she's found.
Okay, very good.
And I think if we find, based on her report, that we should rescind the recommendation, then we can do that too.
I'm sorry, which one is this?
It's actually me.
Oh, sorry,
I'm doing-
Debbie.
I'm
Sorry,
doing the
Debbie.
report. That's all right.
Debbie did the report,
I
On
did the
that.
report. Yeah.
Energy Sage. Okay. So we'll get to that, Steve, during the
Okay.
updates on initiatives.
Very good.
Okay. So as soon as we're ready, I would entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes from June 16th, 2022.
Motion to approve?
Thanks, Josh. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, is there any discussion? All right, why don't we take a vote, roll call vote, because we are virtual. Tanya Bodell, aye.
Steve Winter, aye.
Josh Taunton, aye.
Mike Schmidt, aye.
Debbie Cook, aye.
And Pat, were you
Patty, you
there?
were abstaining, right?
Sorry, I thought I was unmuted. I abstained because I was not at the meeting.
Okay, and so the meeting minutes pass. The beautiful meeting minutes pass 5-0 with 1 abstention. Perfect. Okay, great. Thank you again, Debbie, for those. Okay, so we're still waiting for Matt. I don't know if we could send him a little ping to remind him. He had confirmed. We did send him the agenda with the link, but maybe he's having some trouble getting in. Michelle, is there anybody in the waiting room?
No.
I just texted him.
Okay, perfect. Okay, well, why don't we do this as we're, I think we can do a quick update on the grants while we're waiting for him to arrive. So the Mass CEC Electric School Bus Demonstration Project, this was not awarded. I don't know why I said awarded. This was approved. So we might have to make an adjustment for that in the meeting minutes. So I think we gave an update at the last meeting. The Electric School Bus Demonstration Project, we received favorable pricing from NLX. We went to the school committee and they approved a motion to move forward in accordance with the municipal procurement rules. And similarly, the select board also made a unanimous motion to move forward, subject to the municipal procurement rules. And Michelle Leary did a wonderful request for proposal. And Michelle, do you want to give us an update on the RFP and
Sure.
anything else on that?
Yep. So we completed the RFP. Tanya, thank you for working through it with me. It hit the streets yesterday. We've had 4 people request it. We've had, well, NLX, we sent it to them out of a courtesy. We've had Anderson Blue Bus Sales of New England, Novatech in KS State Bank, which I thought was interesting, requests this bid. We have not received a request from Highland Electric, which I think is odd, but maybe they just haven't seen it yet. I'm happy to send this to anybody that you think is viable, if you prefer me to do it that way. But as of right now, we're just waiting for people to request it. It is projected, the projected due date is July 29th. I believe we're going to extend that just by a weekend to be August 1st. Just to make sure we're in compliance with the Central Register advertisement, and we'll see how many proposals we receive.
Great. And did you send a copy to Highland Electric since they did present to us?
I did not. I didn't know if you wanted me to, if we were waiting for them to request it.
I think, is there any reason we can't send it out to potential bidders?
No, we can absolutely send it to whomever you'd like. Highland Electric is on state contract, I can tell you that.
Oh, good.
So
I think unless the committee disagrees, Highland Electric did come and speak to us. I don't know if it was last year or 2020 at this point, but Highland Electric did come and speak to us. And I think the fact they did appear before us would warrant a courtesy send of the RFP.
I can actually do that tonight.
Perfect. Is there anybody who disagrees? No. Okay, good. That'd be great. And it sounds like there might be some robust bidding. Just so everybody knows, the town, and Michelle looked into this, the town is required to do a competitive procurement process, even though the initial conversations were about an electric school bus demonstration project. And so the RFP is for one electric school bus lease. I don't, if we receive more than one favorable bids, I think that gives us an opportunity to go back to the school committee and see if they'd be interested in more than one bus. But at this point, at a minimum, we'd like to have one electric school bus as a demonstration project for the town to understand more about the technology and collect information to then make a larger decision down the road, no pun intended, on what we want to do with respect to the entire fleet. Pat.
I just had a question. You started to say something about a grant in the beginning of the conversation.
Yes.
So is there a grant out there that's been applied for a lease, or is that just for purchase?
So there are a number of grants that are out there on the state level and the federal level, including a $500 million solicitation from the EPA under the infrastructure bill. We have not, the town has not applied for any grants, and the town does not have a grant itself. But in some of these cases, either the school bus companies or other entities that can manage the school bus process have grants or may have access to grants that could be taken into account when they give us their bid. And that is our hope, because what we have heard from Highland Electric and what we've heard from NLX is that they feel they could offer up a lease payment to the town that would be on par with the cost of leasing a diesel bus. And you don't get there without grants.
Yeah, I recall that being part of the conversation, but I didn't know how much had changed over the last year or so.
Yep. Nope. So we think there's more money than ever out there. Whether or not a town like Cohasset can access that money is another thing. For example, the EPA money is very focused on towns that have a certain level of poverty that's much higher than Cohasset's. However, some of these entities that are out there pulling together these types of leases have grant money through state and federal and other demonstration projects, for example. So what has gone out, it started as an electric school bus demonstration project discussion with NLX. We moved it forward. We got enough information to be able to move it forward and get the approval of the school committee and the select board. And now, under the municipal laws related to procurement, we're going out to procure a lease, 5-year or 7-year lease with an option to own for one bus is what we've asked for.
And a charging station? What about the charging?
And a charging station. And we've asked them to include all the maintenance and all of the fuel,
Okay.
meaning the electricity. So the RFP is public, and Michelle, if you could send the link to the RFP,
Sure.
then we can include that in the meeting minutes.
Okay.
It'll be posted, if we get the meeting, well, we can't approve the meeting minutes.
It should be on the town website by tomorrow morning. So you can pull it down there. It'll be under the procurement page. So there'll be a
Okay.
link there.
Perfect. Any other questions on the electric school bus? Okay. The Mass CEC batteries for Harborview. I think we spoke last time that Mass CEC had reached out to us. They had some additional money that they wanted to provide in grants as follow-ups to the CLEAR studies that had been performed. And they were looking for letter proposals submitted before the end of their fiscal year, which was June 30th. And Michelle and I spoke about the different alternatives. And we had a meeting with Mass CEC to talk about our two studies, one of which is the DPW site, the other was the Harborview Police Fire Station. And based on those conversations, we decided to move forward with submitting a proposal for funding from the Mass CEC for residential backup batteries, such as a power wall. And that would be used for the common areas of Harborview, which currently does not have its own backup generator, leases one from the town, and it's a diesel generator, and it only comes during storms. They only have a limited number of days a year that they can call on that. So we put together a proposal. We asked them for money. At the same time, simultaneously, we went to two other committees in town to see if they would be interested in potentially matching that funding, so that instead of only 2 batteries, we could get up to 8 batteries. And those 8 batteries could potentially give us a day and a half of the common areas, and a day and a half in the winter and more than 3 days in the summer, so that the air conditioning could stay on. And we received a positive feedback from those committees being CPC. Russ Benetti said that this was exactly the type of funding opportunity they would be interested in. And the Cohasset Affordable Housing Trust said that they had money from when the movie came to town, and there had been money donated to the Affordable Housing Trust. And it was for exactly these types of matching opportunities to send a message to the state that we are partners and we want to help fund it. So with that, we did receive $20,000 from the Mass CEC. We received a interest in matching that for another $20,000 from CPC, and another potential 10,000. I think they may have voted on it yesterday. I don't know if they did or not, but another $10,000 to $20,000 from the Cohasset Affordable Housing Trust, which would give us $60,000 for backup batteries for Harborview. Which I'm so excited about, because those are our most vulnerable citizens. There are elderly and there are people with disabilities, and in the middle of an outage, they go cold and dark, and it's absolutely awful. So very excited about potentially being able to give them some backup batteries.
That's great news.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Great.
Okay, so the next one, we're thinking about this, and Michelle believes that this would be definitely something we should consider. Diesel Emissions Reduction Act. The Mass DEP has, Michelle's at 1.8 million.
Yes.
Okay, I think it's around 1.8 million for funding to replace diesel generators of different types, including backup generators, diesel generators with a cleaner fuel solution. Question is, what is that cleaner fuel solution? And so we are cogitating on what we might want to submit for funding. And it may be something tied to that same site, the Harborview Police Fire Station. Because right now we have a natural gas fired generator in the basement of the police station. We have diesel fired generators in other parts of town. The town itself has a total of 13 backup generators, most of which are diesel, but some are natural gas. And so the question is, can we get funding? And it'd be like 55% funding to replace any of those with a cleaner solution. I might also add that many of those diesel generators are at the end of life. So it allows us to get 55% of the cost paid for. And we might be able to explore some of the cleaner solutions for the backup generation and use that as a testing opportunity to see if we want to replace the entire diesel fired fleet. So that's due August 24th. If anybody has ideas on that, as far as locations or what type of cleaner fuel we might want to try using, let us know.
So, I mean, other than diesel, natural gas, or battery, I mean, what else is there that's viable?
Well, this is where potentially Q Hydrogen could come in. If they're supposed to, that New Hampshire, we've talked about this before, it's a hydrogen fuel. They're going to be producing that in Groveton, New Hampshire, starting this fall. And so that might be an option, but it is a new technology, new fuel. It's actually not a new technology. They use reciprocating engines. The other option would be renewable natural gas, which is very expensive. So we'd have to look at whether or not the grant offsets the higher cost of the renewable natural gas. And I think those are pretty much the only options. But if anybody knows something else, perpetual motion machine,
Small nuclear reactor,
small nuclear reactor. Actually,
water
there is
wheel.
one, water wheel, flywheel. So Chris, we were working with a fellow named Chris from NLX on the electric school bus demonstration project. He's now moved to a company called EKN. And EKN has, in the size of a flatbed, it's a long duration battery, which basically has its own, it's basically a fuel cell, a hydrogen fuel cell. So a hydrogen fuel cell would be another option, which is not a battery per se, but it operates like a battery. So
And where do you get the hydrogen for it?
the hydrogen is part of the initial fueling, and then the battery is self-contained and it goes
Okay,
in and out.
it's regenerated. All right.
So what we might want to do, Michelle, I don't know if you're interested in another RFP. But what we might want to do, since we have time, and so this is up for discussion with this committee, is we don't need to guess. What we might want to do is just put out an RFP and see what comes back. And that could be interesting because there might be technologies we're not familiar with. It would give us a firm price, and we'd have price transparency to understand going forward as a first step if we move forward with a microgrid, depending on the BRIC funding. But it might be the first step in trying to get some information about what some of the alternatives are for a rotating generator.
If that's what you'd like to do, I mean, we can work on something and get it out there.
What do people think? Happy summer, Michelle.
Oh,
It sounds like a
my
good
summer's
idea.
already blown. It doesn't even matter. Let's RFP everything.
Well, it sounds like a good idea to me because it fits in good with the microgrid project, and it can be like the first step. If we end up being able to do a full-scale microgrid, certainly these battery backups of various technologies will be part of it. So we'll just be ahead of the game if we get something going now, sooner.
Yep. Does everybody agree? I don't think we need to make a motion on this, but if there's consensus, I think, Michelle, I'm happy to work with you on this. And if somebody else would like to be a part of the RFP process, because I know you're jealous that Michelle and I were the only ones working on the batteries for Harborview.
I say you guys know how to do it, so go to it.
Really jealous. Like, I know you're really jealous, really jealous. I don't know.
I feel like with emergency power, it's something you need to rely on. So, there's a lot of emerging technologies that just aren't quite there yet. I think if you have an older diesel engine that you can convert to natural gas and you can get some money for, I think that's a win. But to try to, back up a police or fire station with a new technology, I think it's just too much of a risk for a town the size of Cohasset. That's my thoughts.
Right. No, that's a good point. And in fact, the emergency response team is looking to do a FEMA hazard mitigation grant, separate and apart from the BRIC grant, but a hazard mitigation grant to get 75% funding for backup generation for the police fire station. So this might be another reason to go do it, just to see what the alternatives are. I mean, let's be honest, there's a reason why everybody's using diesel backup generation. Until recently, it's been the cheapest backup.
I got a
Power.
question here. Say at the police fire department, so the diesel generator is nearing end of life, I've heard.
No, because actually the police fire station is a gas fired generator right
Oh, okay. Well, where is the diesel one that's running near end of life?
now.
What I'm thinking is that if we can get like newer technology, not so sure I'd call a battery backup a newer technology, but anyways, if we can get battery backup or even your fuel cell idea, would there be room, footprint big enough to hold both? So have the diesel or the gas as backup for the battery, you know?
Yeah, but remember, this is a Diesel Emissions Reduction Act funding, so it has to be a
Okay.
diesel generator. And
All
the
right, so
answer
yeah,
is,
we have to remove the diesel. We can't leave it there as a backup to, yeah.
no, not necessarily. I mean, I think it's a reduction, right? So we could keep the diesel generator and have the new technology, whatever that might be, if it, we're convinced it's not going to blow up everything. We could have that on site. So two obvious places right now, the largest diesel fired backup generators. Actually, I don't know if they're natural gas. So a lot of our diesel generators are small. I'll have to take a look at the list. The two largest backup generators that we have are at the water plant and the wastewater treatment plant. One is like 475 kilowatts. The other is 350 kilowatts. And I just have to look into whether they're natural gas or diesel.
Well, my only point was to allay Michael's concern about the unproven new technology, that if we, decide that for some reason we want to try a newer technology like fuel cells, would it be possible? Would there be enough could we leave the diesel equipment there just in case our newer technology failed for some reason? Then we'd have the diesel as backup.
Right, and the answer is for the ones we own, yes. Right, DPW has a number of diesel, I think they have like 5 diesel generators, and there's another 5 that we lease. So for the ones that we own, we could do that. For the ones we lease, if I think it would not make sense. Well, let's let the town decide, let the DPW decide. I think there's nothing to lose. It sounds like there's nothing to lose in putting out an RFP to understand what the technologies are and who the potential bidders are. And that prepares us for a potentially bigger solicitation if we get the BRIC grant. And if there's a, Michael, I think you should be part of the review process on the bids, just so that you can, identify the pros and cons of the different alternatives. But I agree with you that the reality is the economic alternatives right now are diesel or natural gas
Yeah, I'm happy to help out.
or batteries.
A 20-year-old diesel, the diesels they're coming out with now, I think are tier 3 or tier 4 with, urea injection and all types of emissions. So, I mean, if they consider that a lowering of diesel emissions, then, if they're going to give us money for it or to go to natural gas, it's maybe that's what they're looking for. I'm not sure. But
Maybe that is, maybe they're looking for a natural gas conversion. I mean, if we can find a fuel cell conversion or something else that's just as effective and not significantly more expensive, then that could be interesting too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's see what the market tells us. Okay, so let's do that. Michelle, if you could take the first cut.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Sure.
And I'll take a review, and then we can put together a list if anybody has suggestions on who might be interested in bidding. I know Michael Hall has done, they've purchased, right? They purchased their backup generators. And so they might know, you might know
So-
some vendors that we could solicit. and then NLX and Amoresco, the folks that we've been talking to for the past 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, we rent from Milton Cat, and they're diesel experts, so they know the diesel end and natural gas end for sure. And then they have a whole battery division, so there's tons of options out there.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Okay, so that's what we'll do for that. And then the last is the FEMA brick grant. Michelle, just to confirm, we have not heard back yet, correct?
No, the only thing we heard was that vague email we got that says we weren't chosen in the first round. However, they're doing it differently, so there's going to be several different cuts at this, and we haven't heard anything since.
Okay, but that first round, was that the one where we were not in it, but that was
Yes.
not our solicitation? Well, it was our solicitation, but I think it was the monies for the tribal and something else.
That's not how I understood it, but maybe.
Okay, I just don't know.
I'll have to look back at that email, but I'm unclear too. I know he said something about it was the first round and there's several rounds, so I'll have to reread that.
Okay, so what we did, so I talked to, so Michelle forwarded me a note. I think you forwarded it to me from Mass CEC that said, Mass CEC said, oh, congratulations, all of our Massachusetts submissions have been accepted at this round. And I was like, oh my God, we got accepted. And then I read the list of who it was and we weren't on it. So I sent an email to Mass CEC and said, could you explain what's going on here? And he said, oh, sorry, you weren't supposed to receive that because that's not your group. So what he explained to me, and maybe Michelle, you have a different one as well. But what he said was there's $200 million of the BRIC grant, which is the national contest, is dedicated to tribal territories and like state government or something like that. And Massachusetts had submitted a whole bunch of small, there were like $270,000, $20,000, $50,000 projects. And all of their submissions made it past the first round. But he said that we're still waiting to hear. And the FEMA site indicated that they were still looking to give it, send out, not awards, but the first round to say you've made it to the next round this summer. So the point is we're still where we were, even though we haven't not won, but we haven't made it to the next round. We don't know where we are. Let's be honest. We just don't know where we are. But we're hopeful and we raised eyebrows. That's what we heard. So
That is confusing.
it is nothing but confusing. Welcome to federal grants. We love you, federal grants, and we'd love to get this one in case you ever watch our public hearings. So, and we think we'd do great. We think we have a great project and we think we're a winner. We hope they do too. So that's where that is. Okay. But I do like the thought of putting out an RFP for the Diesel Emissions Reduction Act and getting information that could help prep us if we do win the BRIC grant for our first stage. Okay, next. Update on initiatives. Energy Sage research. Debbie.
All right. Well, I sent a couple page little report to Tanya. I didn't send it to the committee. I felt like maybe with open meeting law or whatever. But anyway, I can give a little synopsis about what I found out. Ben Soniga gave us 5 towns that they'd had some sort of relationship with: Cambridge, Lexington, Newton, Wayland, and Framingham. Wayland and Framingham are inactive, and actually I spent a lot of time trying to track down even the previous relationship, and frankly I didn't see much of anything about, this solar that was happening in Wayland, for example, was rooftop solar on municipal buildings, but there was really nothing for, for residents or anything like that. So those two, Wayland and Framingham, I didn't find much. Cambridge was, kind of came up empty too. They contract with All In Energy, and All In Energy is basically a Mass Save partner. That's, the way I understand it, subs out Energy Sage as one of the, services that they offer. So basically, there's nothing in-house in Cambridge. It goes through this All In Energy. Lexington, they had a change in their sustainability director, and the new sustainability director knows nothing. But she did say her predecessor set up the relationship, and the reference on the town website basically said, and I'd like to read this because, just quick. So it says the town of Lexington has partnered with Energy Sage, the nation's leading online solar marketplace, to bring you the online tools and resources you need to explore your local rooftop and community solar options. And then it says they offer articles and things like that. It says create an account to access a network of local pre-screened installers who can create custom proposals for you. Dedicated energy advisors are available to answer questions and help you compare options. So that's on their website. That's the exact language. So I think that, basically it says Ben said that, that they will partner and they provide these tools. Newton has a more, well, they're pretty inactive too, but they said the partnership itself, they have a woman, Leora Silks, she's the energy coach for Newton. And she said the partnership itself hasn't necessarily driven up demand because they haven't done much marketing directly with them. But it's been extremely useful to have a resource to point residents towards when they ask about solar, both for finding installers and learning more about financing, etc. She said our partnership with Energy Sage is part of our larger residential energy campaign, and we haven't leaned as heavily into this partnership as perhaps we could. They have they set up a Newton landing page. I've looked at it. It's not, if we had one for Cohasset, I'm hoping we could have a lot more input and make it a lot more worthwhile. I didn't find the landing page really even explained the program. It was very, very vanilla. So that's basically it. She did feel that it was very useful to have as a resource. And then I did look around. I talked to Brianna in Hingham and told them about Energy Sage, and she got kind of excited, and she was going to look into that for the Hingham Municipal Light Plant, and had a meeting with Ben, and she's expecting to get some, MOUs and things from them to propose to Hingham. But she said she'd done a lot of research, and Energy Sage's name kept coming up before, I mentioned it. So she had already seen a lot of it. And there was a lot of stuff from third-party groups that basically said that they're they're a transparent marketplace for homeowners all over the country, an easy to use website, blah, blah, blah. I don't need to go into it too much more. It just sounded like it could be an incredible resource. So I am hoping that we are moving forward. I think we're going to talk to the selectmen about the select board about it, and see about this, right? Did you get the MOU from him?
Yes, and I've forwarded it to Michelle and Chris Senior. So Michelle, I think I guess, first of all, At this point, based on Debbie's report on what she's found, does anybody have any doubts or questions about our vote last meeting to make a recommendation to the select board to move forward with a Cohasset specific web page using Energy Sage?
I still think it's a good idea. But like, yeah, to Debbie's point, we'd have to, market it and people would have to know about it. Otherwise it's like, it's just another website.
I will say that I did receive an email from a resident of Cohasset who asked what we can tell him about solar energy, and he wants to do solar energy, and he's been talking to somebody about solar energy and installing it on his roof, and gave me the name of the company and said, do you have any recommendations, and what do you think about that company? And it was very relieving to be able to just respond back and say, actually, I can't give you any recommendation or any information on that developer, but if you want to do a comparison, you can go to Energy Sage. And we're thinking about doing a Cohasset specific site, but for now you can take advantage of their general site.
Could you remind me, how is it the Energy Sage makes their money? Do they get some kind of commission?
Yes.
Okay.
And the
But
other thing too is that they are, they seem to be quite, I don't want to say aggressive, but, also doing on community solar. So they will, definitely give you contacts and ability to plug into community solar.
Yeah, a few years ago, was it that long? I guess a few years ago, when I first wanted to try to learn about community solar, I signed up for an account at Energy Sage, and then I got really bombarded with emails so finally I had to unsubscribe from them. But yeah, that's the only experience I had with them.
I used to work with Vikram Agarwal, who's the CEO and the founder of Energy Sage. And where he started in it was because he was in the equities group for the firm that I worked with. And he was going out and doing research of all these companies and figured out that there was, in this industry, people just didn't know how to approach getting solar or anything about it. And so he went out and tried to start this, and he said it was very, very difficult to get this started. Nobody wanted to give him any money to invest in it. So I'm glad to see that they finally got a toehold in things. So yeah, I think it would be great. I think if there's anybody besides them out there that we can offer up and we think are a good resource. I think it's very confusing for the average person to try to go through this, and there's been enough bad press and probably some rather unscrupulous types that have been selling, solar products. So I think it would be good to have somebody that's sort of product agnostic out there that people can get some information from. I think it's great.
Okay. So it does not sound like there's any reason not to make the recommendation. Michelle, I can resend you the MOU, but I think we need to have town council review it.
I think if I'm not mistaken, it's in town council's hands already. I just have to ping them and remind them that we need it
Okay, so that's great.
back.
Perfect, thank you.
They've had it
Thank
for a
you.
while. So, yeah.
No, look, this is life, right? We're all busy and things get sent and it's off our desk and onto somebody else's desk, and then they're not going to do anything until you ping them and say it's urgent now. So it'd be nice if we had council's opinion on the MOU, if they already have it, to have council's opinion on the MOU, plus the benefit of this research. Debbie, if you could report out the basis that supports our recommendation. and the importance of having, the town involved in making sure it's an attractive page, and that this would be something our committee would do if our committee members want to do that. And, but I think that basically answers all the questions that the select board might ask. What do we have to sign? It's an MOU. Town council's already reviewed it. There are minor changes. Who's going to take responsibility for making this Cohasset specific? That would be a function of the Alternative Energy Committee if you approve this and want us to work on that. How do we know we're not going to get sued for giving bad advice? Because we're not giving the advice. The whole point of this is to have a third party provide the advice, and we just point to them. So, any other questions we might think of? I think we have enough of the answers now, but maybe we brainstorm before we present to the select board to see if there's anything else. Or Michelle, if we can float this with Chris, and he might have some views, or you might have some views on what the select board members might ask about. We can also talk to Corey, our liaison, offline and see what his questions are and be ready to answer. But I think we have credibility because we tend to come to the select board with answers and no brainers. And it just makes it easy for them to vote for things. So I think we're in a good position right now to make that recommendation. And it sounds like everybody's happy with our vote from last meeting.
Absolutely.
All right. Great. Thank you, Debbie. Great work. Okay, speaking of Energy Sage and Brianna, and this was something that we could not put on the agenda, but it sort of follows from Energy Sage. Hingham yesterday, as part of their climate action plan, looked at what they want to do with respect to reducing carbon on the buildings of Hingham, residential and commercial and municipal buildings in Hingham. One of the things that was raised as part of their public meeting on June 15th was the desire to have a regional effort where multiple communities come together and sponsor a site that would recommend potential vendors who can install heat pumps, solar, batteries. Debbie, does this sound familiar to you?
It does. It does. I think I hear little shades of Go Electric.
Yes, I think so too.
Yes. Yeah.
So there seemed to be a consensus that this would be something that would make sense to be done on a regional level to lever the contractors that are in the South Shore and surrounding communities. And I just wanted to give people an update on that because that was part of the consensus building that came out of yesterday's meeting of the Climate Action Planning Committee of Hingham. So just a heads up, they don't have their next steps yet, but it looks like we might want to consider, if it's not Energy Sage, I know Energy Sage wants to go into all of that, but Energy Sage might be part of that solution, or there might be multiple places that can then link to, say, a Cohasset Energy Sage website, or maybe we make it a South Shore website. But key thing is, I think let's go baby steps to the select board with the Energy Sage recommendation. Also let them know this could be part of a bigger regional effort based on what Hingham's doing, and get the response. Okay. Next step, solar energy RFP, community solar. So on this one, we have received a proposal from Palmer Capital for the town to buy solar energy from rooftop solar at the Stop and Shop Center. And it'd be two separate solar energy arrays. One is like 180 kilowatts and another is like 350, 380. I can get you the exact numbers for the minutes. But I think the total is close to 500 kilowatts, which is almost the size of our old landfill. They would guarantee savings of 1 1.2 cents per kilowatt hour. And so as opposed to setting a fixed price that the town would buy and then take the risk that energy prices or the credit goes up or down, they would basically guarantee us 1.2 cents per kilowatt hour. And so if the credit goes up, they get the benefit. If the credit goes below whatever a price would be that we would make, we don't take that risk.
I'm sorry, I don't understand. 1.2 kilowatt hour, cents per kilowatt hour,
Correct.
off what? I
Off
don't
of our
understand.
electricity bill.
Okay,
It's like a PVA or?
So it'd be, so basically it would, so the way that our landfill is structured, we buy the energy, which isn't buying energy, it's buying the credit, but we basically buy the energy credit for 8.8 cents per kWh. And then the state sets what the credit is that we get on our bill. So we spend 8.8 cents and then we get a credit back on our bill from National Grid. And that initially was 12 cents. It's now 22 cents. So we're making bank. We're basically getting a 22-cent credit in exchange for 8.8 cents. It's very lucrative, that landfill. That program is now over because there are certain localities like us that are cashing in a lot. And so the new Smart 2.0 program basically sets a credit, and as opposed to us making a certain payment, it's not as rich. So it'd be like, for example, we pay 8.8 cents. These aren't the numbers. I don't know what the numbers are, but it'd be the equivalent of us paying 8.8 cents to Palmer and then them giving us a 10-cent credit. It doesn't go up, it doesn't go down.
It's kind of like a PPA then, right?
It's basically, it's the PPA without the PPA. It's
Right.
just, we're buying the credit.
Yeah, okay.
And so we can either pay a fixed price for that credit and get whatever the state decides is the credit value back, and it goes up and down. Right now it's very up because of gas prices. Or we can lock in a fixed margin from Palmer. So what they're offering is to basically guarantee us a 1.2 cent per kilowatt hour net credit on our bill.
And what does the Stop and Shop get? What do they? They're just,
They get whatever their lease arrangement is with them. And that lease arrangement, we don't know what that lease arrangement is. It could be a fixed price, it could be a variable price. Somebody's taking the risk and somebody's getting the reward. So let me give you an example. Right now, the credit's not that great and the cost of installing the solar is higher. So back to the original SMART program, and it wasn't a SMART program, but the SREC program, there are towns in Massachusetts that agreed to buy the power for 16 cents. And at one point, the credit they got back went down to 12 cents. So they were losing, not losing money. They were paying a premium for the solar energy. They were underwater. So they weren't getting savings from the solar. We happen to be in a position where our landfill is just printing money. But that's not reality for everybody. So what Palmer has offered up is a guaranteed savings.
Sounds like a gale here. Is anybody? I think I might have to run and close windows, so.
nothing
It
on this
just-
side of town.
It just passed
Huh?
through Hull. It's quick.
perfectly still where I am.
Oh, really? All of a
Not
sudden?
a leaf
no.
is ruffling.
Well, if I get up, it means there's water coming in my window. So.
It's fast moving.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't see anything either, so.
On its
Okay.
way. It just left me.
So anyway, I think it's not as lucrative as, it's not, that we're buying the credit off of a third-party site is the least beneficial way for us. It's actually not the least beneficial way. The least beneficial way for the town to proceed is to put solar on a small building like the DPW building or the police station or the water plant. It turns out those are very expensive to do and they can't be offset by the credit. So we gain nothing. We get solar, but we don't get any savings. The next best alternative would be to buy off of a third-party site. And that gives us around 1.2 cents per kilowatt hour. The next best alternative would be carports on either the town lot or the schools, which they don't want. And although there is still an option for that, if we get a new bus depot parking spot, and that gives us around 4 cents of savings, but no guarantees. It could go up or down, but it starts at 4 cents. And then the most lucrative is put the solar on a big roof like the schools and have it go directly into the school to offset all of the electricity bill. And that's more like 5 or 6 cents. We've been waiting and not going forward with third-party procurement because it's not as beneficial as some of the other options, but the other options are getting shut down or they're not feasible because we don't have a new school roof. So the question is, do we want to turn our nose up on guaranteed savings? Or do we move forward, let the town enter into this agreement, get those savings, and if a better deal like a school roof gets replaced and we can do the school roofs, if a better deal comes along, then we can take that for the town and pass along the guaranteed savings to the water plant or to the wastewater treatment plant because they have appetite for these credits. Does anybody have any thoughts or any questions?
I'm still wondering about those inverter problems at the landfill. And why we can't double the size of that array there.
I keep asking about the same thing. Because, and that's though, even if we did that, we're under a smart 2.0 program, not a smart 1.0, and it's not as lucrative.
But it'd be a lot more lucrative than the Stop and Shop roof.
It would be, but it's not on the microgrid. So part of the benefit of the Stop and Shop roofs is it could be part of a broader microgrid if we move forward with that. The other thing is I did reach out to the entity that has the concession for the MBTA parking site. I think that one might be similar to a Stop and Shop roof because it's a third-party site, it's MBTA, but I don't know what they're charging for a lease. That could give us 1.75 megawatts. But we have, I guess my point is, we have tons of appetite. The town has another 1.75 megawatts of credits that we could absorb on our bill. The wastewater treatment plant has around 1.75 megawatts of credits they could absorb. And the water plant has about 1.75 megawatts of credits that they could absorb. So we have tons of ability to take on credits. And all of those sites that were identified are just not happening for some point, for some reason. And as much as we've been holding out for the more lucrative sites. Keep in mind, at the end of this year, the 26% investment tax credit expires. It doesn't expire, it goes down to 22% next year and then to 0%. So we potentially lose the investment tax credit, which is right now almost more than a quarter of the total upfront cost as a subsidy from the federal government. In addition, Biden waived the Trump tariffs on solar panels, so we have a decrease in price right now as a result of that. On the other hand, we've got inflation running forward and we've got supply chain issues. So, you know, if we wait too long, we may end up getting nothing. We might be that dog crossing the bridge with a bone that looks in the water and sees a bigger bone and gets nothing. So I want us to get the best deal possible. But right now, the only bird in hand that we have is a guaranteed 1.2 cents per kilowatt hour savings.
So Tanya, I don't understand why you wouldn't get it from every source you possibly could. I mean, I don't understand why it's one would, you know, knock the other out. And if so, which I'm not understanding, but if so, couldn't Stasco give the tenants at his building those credits as part of like a deal for their, I mean, could he transfer them to the residents of his buildings if there's a reason that we have to end that relationship? But I don't understand why we would.
Right. And so the answer is we should take as much as we can. Absolutely. The only option, the only real opportunity we have right now is a third-party site. Because there's inverter issues at the landfill, because the school roofs are too old, because the school committee doesn't want to do carports on the parking lot.
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree with Debbie. What's preventing us from accepting the 1.2 cents per kilowatt hour on top of the Stop and Shop roof? And it doesn't block out any other opportunity that comes along in the future. So let's do it. Yes, of course. It's obvious.
Yeah.
No brainer to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Okay. Again, our job is to bring no-brainers to the select board. I totally agree. Like, I totally agree. We've been not taking, well, we haven't had the opportunity to take it because they've spent the last year trying to negotiate with Stasco. Right. So, and Stasco has spent the last year and a half trying to get the town to approve a sewer and water connection. Right. So there's been delays and only now have those delays gone away. So now is our opportunity. This is called development and it's like watching the corn grow. So the corn has now grown. It's time to harvest. I think we want to move forward. I think the recommendation, let's make an official vote for this committee. Unless there are other questions, I would entertain a motion to make a recommendation to the select board to accept the offer of putting solar panels on the third-party site at Stop and Shop.
Is there a written document or offer that we can see?
There is a written offer, so we can distribute that. If we're not ready to make a vote, we don't have to make a vote on this round.
Yeah,
So
I'd like to
we
just
can-
see that first.
Yeah, we can distribute the contract and the written offer.
What about the National Grid, the Noel station site for the 3 VO protection?
So very good question. If everybody remembers, we received an estimate from National Grid that a tiny solar energy array, well, not a tiny solar energy array, but one of our solar energy array options, which is I think the carports for Amoresco, that solar energy, no, it was the school roofs. So Select went ahead and put us in the queue for the school roofs. And it was a good thing they did because National Grid came back and said it's going to cost us $500,000 to upgrade the Norwell substation to do a 500 kilowatt solar energy array.
I thought that went away. I thought that worked out.
Well, they said it did because we said we were going to put in a request for we were going to include that cost with the BRIC grant. And once we said we were going to submit that cost from National Grid to the federal government, all of a sudden that wasn't a problem anymore. So we think it's not a problem, but that's what Steve's asking about. So Steve, that was a big problem. We think it's gone away, but National Grid didn't guarantee that it went away. but they did verbally tell us they've re-looked at that situation and decided that it's not our fault, that the problem already exists from others.
Right,
And
I mean, I would definitely would ask them, honestly, because, you know, if they have a backflow issue, it can't backflow into their station transformers if there's reverse power. So, yeah, I would definitely ask. I mean, if it's not ours, I mean, that'd be up to the developer. But
Yeah, and it's just a question of getting in the queue. And so before Palmer will put it in the queue, they want to have us give them a commitment letter similar to the one we've already done that says we are willing to negotiate with you on this. But okay, so let's do this. We've sent to Michelle the Palmer Capital documents, a draft of the letter they would like us to send back for the new component through the additional rooftop that was not included as part of the original bid. And they also drafted a revised contract, which is different than the landfill because of the way it's structured. And they've drafted that and sent it to us, and that's been sent for review. So I don't know what the status of those documents are right now, but it sounds like this committee wants to review those documents before voting, and I think we should also have council review those documents. Does that make sense?
That's in the
Okay.
legal queue, so.
It's in the legal queue.
Yep.
So if you could just ping them and let them know that's sitting there, and then I'll distribute that to this committee and we can discuss it. Do we want to meet in 2 weeks instead of waiting to discuss this particular issue in August? Just have a half-hour meeting to discuss this recommendation?
I wouldn't mind if it expedites things.
Sure.
Okay, let's do that then. We'll have a meeting in 2 weeks that is focused only on the third-party Stop and Shop site. Okay,
It's good.
it is good. It's exciting. Look, I think in my mind, it's especially exciting because it's potentially the microgrid coming together, right? While giving us savings. So reliability that pays for itself. But, and we have enough appetite, it's not going to lock us out of future opportunity.
So
Okay.
just one last question.
Mhm.
What's the math to figure out what the savings would be based upon our usage? Like, what percentage of the municipal usage is that going to provide?
So the math is for the municipal usage. We calculated this as part of the RFP. We have 1.75 megawatts or 1,750 megawatts of opportunity. And this would be around 500. So it would be a little bit less than a third of the town's, the municipal load. But then on top of that, the water plant and the wastewater treatment plant have their own demand that currently is not getting any credits. So the math would be 3.5, around 4.25 total. So this would be maybe 15% of what we would have the capacity to absorb.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and again, we can start with giving it to the municipal load, and then if better opportunities happen, we can pass it on to either a water plant or wastewater treatment plant, and the benefit would then go to the users of, it'd probably be the water plant, because the water plant, almost everybody is using the water. The wastewater treatment plant, it's only a portion of the town. So I think the order of credit would be first we put it on the town's accounts, then we put it on the water plants accounts, and then we put it on the sewer wastewater treatment plants accounts.
The water, I think the water commission would definitely would like that because it could prevent, it could help reduction of any future rates for the water.
Exactly.
Especially with our big projects coming up. So yeah, I would definitely at some point come and talk to us. We're gonna have quite a few meetings shortly, so.
Yep. So
Okay.
I spoke to Corey Evans about this, so I'm not, the feedback he gave me was politically, we need to try to maximize the benefit to the most people in town. And that starts with the municipal load and the municipal accounts. But then the next would be the water plant because they service almost everybody in town. And then after them would be the wastewater treatment plant because they service partial, but they also have high load because of the pumps and everything. So again, I think, as Debbie said, why aren't we getting as much as possible? And the answer is we should be. We should be trying to get as much as possible. We're just getting roadblocks on some of the more lucrative sites because of reality. But that's why I reached out to the developer of the MBTA station. Steve, do you know those guys? Because they are dropping code and not responding.
Yeah, I know them. They have some turnaround. I could find out. I thought they were abandoning that project. I think they only did Norwood and us, and they were supposed to do 2 in Weymouth, and they kind of just went silent. I don't know. I can find out though.
But if you could find out urgently, because if there's a way to substitute somebody else in for them, like Amoresco, I know Amoresco doesn't have the concession to do it, but if the one who has a concession isn't doing it, let's get somebody in who can, if we can.
Right. Yeah, no, I'll find out if there's still projects in the scope for them.
Okay, perfect.
I thought the roadblock there was the National Grid 4 kV step down area. There's so many upgrades that need to be done to allow solar at that site.
Right. That was one station was the second. And I think there was issues with the MBTA as well, with their sites and easements. That was the other one, but was the easements issues that they would need from National Grid to the Canopy site. That's what I remember.
Yeah, let's just get a definitive answer so that if it turns out that MBTA site doesn't work, I can stop salivating over it. Just walk away and focus on trying to get something else done. But I think it behooves us to spend the next 6 months, actually next 3 months, just going for go on as much solar as possible for the town, because we may lose this very fat ITC, which ratchets down at the end of the year. Okay.
Sounds good. I'll find out and let you folks know.
And there's a bit of a sense of urgency, Michelle, on the queue, the legal queue, because we need to get in the queue for the Smart 2.0 credits. And if we don't give them a letter, they're not going to submit the proposal to National Grid to get in the queue.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So that's that. I thought we were going to be done at 8:30, but that was a good conversation. Okay. Marketing, Community Choice Aggregation Subcommittee. What's going on?
Let me give you a quick summary. So as you know, at the last meeting, I reported that the DPU issued an order through Westwood that affects the 6 towns that are that went submitted our proposal at the same time. They're Westwood, Cohasset, Marshfield, Situate, Rochester, and Uxbridge. Anyways, the DPU ordered that, and the 6 towns were briefed by Good Energy. Debbie was there at the meeting. The big thing that came out of that was that the lawyers for Good Energy told us that the DPU was ordering changes to the programs that seemed inconsistent with state law. They were requesting changes that have to do with what happens when programs up for renewal, and they mentioned the opt-out option requirement. Anyways, the point is that the lawyers for Good Energy have now come back to the DPU with a request for reconsideration filing. So they're disputing these changes that the DPU is ordering us to make. So in my mind, is another delaying tactic just to prevent them from having to act on the plans. So anyways, that's where we are. I don't know. If you have questions, I'll try to answer them, but I probably won't know the answers.
All right, any questions?
So let me just also, so that meeting that, that Steve referred to, we had agreed that we were gonna meet in a month and at the 6 towns, because we had gotten together with, and then originally we were not gonna meet with Good Energy. And we were gonna just see what, we could do to sort of strong arm stuff to go through. And anyways, then we decided maybe we should invite Good Energy to this last meeting of the 6 towns. And everybody came, the attorney and everybody. And like Steve said, the day before they had come in with these 2 documents, one which was full of stupid requests. It was 12 pages long, and the other was substantive changes to the agreement again. And so basically we were supposed to meet last Thursday, the 6 towns, and I called John O'Rourke, and he asked the attorney, and the attorney basically said, we think we're making some progress, and to please lay low. So, it's just, but when you hear about a motion to reconsider, that seems like almost going back to the drawing board. So it's very frustrating. So I think, I don't know if anybody has any feedback about or ideas whether I know some of the other towns are eager to, regroup and figure out what we're gonna do. I don't know. We're not sure what to do.
By the way, I attended a meeting last night of the Climate Action Network for Quincy. They're also in the queue with the DPU for community choice aggregation, even longer than we've been in there. So we had a pretty lively discussion about that issue. But the motion for reconsideration was just for the DPU to reconsider the changes that they were ordering us to make in the plan.
No, I get that.
Yeah.
But that seems like it's once again, going back to ask them not to ask us to do the things they.
Yeah,
want
right. So now we
to
got
do.
lawyers
it's like,
fighting about.
It's
this.
like going back to the drawing
my
board.
God.
I mean, it's pretty brutal.
Well, I would say keep fighting the good fight. I wonder if the marketing effort for community aggregation could be changed to develop a marketing plan for an Energy Sage or regional Go Electric type of website. Like, knowing we're going to be recommending an Energy Sage adoption by the select board, and that Hingham's looking at as part of their climate action plan, a region-wide collection of contractors who can help customers do different things, and knowing that the ITC is expiring or starting to expire and ratchet down. Would you be interested in trying to think about what kind of marketing plan, instead of community aggregation at this point, but what kind of marketing plan we could do to make sure people know that this is an important time?
Boy, that's a tough one, because it would confuse our residents if we tried to do both things at more or less the same time, do a community choice aggregation and do the Energy Sage idea.
Oh, I'm sorry, but I really don't agree, because I think they're very, very different. I mean, my thought when I come up with the Go Electric project was it was going to piggyback off the effort from all the money they were going to save. But this is ridiculous. If people can, plug into solar now, and get all of this, I think don't you think they're two separate things completely? And so, telling people about sort of going electric and where they can get deals to get a new, everything from electric lawnmower to how to get solar on their house. I think it's just switching the order, I think, but I don't think it would confuse people. It just gets them focused on electricity, actually.
Yeah, well, maybe you're right. I wouldn't be adverse to doing that.
I think it's all about the positioning because not everybody has the means or even a house to put solar on. So, the fact is people can take advantage of community aggregation, whether or not solar is an option to them. And they can, we just have to make sure that the language and the way that it's discussed on the website makes it clear, which thing is which and why you'd be interested in one versus the other.
Well, Energy Sage, there are three main ways that a resident can go. They could, if we had a community choice aggregation program, they could go with that and sign up for the, full green option, 100% renewable energy. Or if they could go with Energy Sage and actually, get solar panels for their own roofs. Or they could go with Energy Sage in a community solar project, which is a third option, like having solar panels, but not on your roof, but on a commercial array somewhere. And Energy Sage does that also. So those are three options, and I'm sure there are more options available. It is confusing. I think it's confusing, but maybe we could pull it off. Maybe we could, as part of a Go Electric project, and get a website that could draw some attention from our residents that would, first of all, talk about the Energy Sage idea. And then when we finally get the go ahead from the DPU, then we can broaden it out and also explain the community choice aggregation program. Is that what you're thinking, Debbie, or would you keep the two? Would you have to have two different web pages for the two types of programs, the Solar Sage thing and the aggregation?
I think I think for right now, basically what we're talking about just is getting people to switch, from using gas powered things and fossil fuels to electric. So that is really more in a purchasing kind of a thing, is what, the other is sourcing where they are getting their electricity. So I feel like that's totally different. This my idea had always been, well, they've saved money, so now, you should buy electric things and try to get rid of the fossil fuels in your home. So I mean, trying to get somebody to get a discount on an induction stove has nothing to do with electric.
Yeah, right. So that's kind of how I looked at it too. So the Go Electric idea, but that we could and on the Go Electric website, where we talk about solar PV, we could provide links to Energy Sage as a way to help them get into that idea. Is that right? Is that how you're thinking?
Right, but
then we would
also push energy.
Yeah. And then when aggregation came into fruition, we would have a different access point through the Cohasset town webpage that people could access to Good Energy's information. So it'd be two separate things, right?
Right. And one of the things we were talking about is this Go Electric project, which Tanya was talking about, that come out of, discussions with Hingham, but Brianna and I were talking initially about trying to, collaborate. She's already started doing a fantastic web page for the Hingham Municipal Light Plant along that line. And it seemed like, well, why go through all this and reinvent the wheel if we can all share that information, and get vendors and people to give discounts, but it's a completely separate issue than the sourcing. And I
By
don't
the
even
way,
think they would be on the same website at all.
did you share your Go Electric webpage with Brianna so she could see that, what you did, which I think was put together quite well, our
Well, no,
prototype.
But she worked on it extensively.
Oh, Brianna did?
Oh, she did a ton. So a lot
Oh,
of that.
I'd forgotten that. I'm sorry. This guy's stupid.
She was
Okay.
intimately involved, but she does
All
have
right.
the link. And so we've been talking and
Okay, wonderful.
yeah, but that was just under the radar without making any, I was still investigating, Tanya. I'm not making any promises. We were just investigating the possibility of collaborating.
Debbie's so afraid of stepping on your toes here, Tanya. I'll tell you.
It's
And-
not my toes. I just want independence.
And I wanted to say, it makes more sense right now for the collaboration to go with Hingham as opposed to Marshfield and Situate, because Brianna, first of all, is doing the same thing and she's getting paid. And so, we can work on this together, and we're sharing the sustainability director and everything else. So, but this is just really, all it is just a central location to go to research how to, switch things out from fossil fuel to
Well, what about potential discounts and so forth, coupons and whatnot? Are you still gonna? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And the Clean Energy Center, and there'll be links to all that, and so, and things, it's, and then just a lot of information about the importance of why you don't want to have gas in your house, and with all the toxic chemicals and things like that. So it's,
So look, as we said before, all of these efforts eventually bubble up, right? So when we get frustrated that something looks like it's coming up against a dead end, whether it's solar panels or Go Electric at a point, we can take a step back, and then other things happen. Stars have to align. We're talking about major change. We're talking about transforming an energy industry and our little role in that. So there's a lot of things that have to come together. Things are coming together, but based on this conversation, it seems like while we're waiting for the community choice aggregation to happen, maybe you guys can put together an article about why these are not confusing, right? You can do community choice aggregation. And in addition to that, you can do solar on your own roofs plus community solar. Like, it's not A, B, or C, it's all of the above.
right.
So maybe that's the message, because just even this conversation of very educated people who have been living and breathing this seemed like it was confusing. And I agree with Steve, it is confusing. Can I do this? Do I want to put solar on? If I want to do community aggregation, but I want to do community aggregation, I think we just say all of the above.
But I have solar. I have a third-party system because I buy wind credits, for my supply side. So I have to opt into aggregation. But if I was still in the National Grid program with my solar, I just can easily go right into aggregation. I mean, they're absolutely not they're not the same thing at all, right? Where Steve Giardi, stand up for me.
No, I think let's do this because we've spent a lot of time on this already. And I think it's been a useful conversation, but I think the key conclusion is this can be very confusing to people who don't sit in on our meetings every month. And even for those who do sit in on our meetings every month, it can still be confusing. So maybe let's do an article, get back in the press, man. We haven't had articles about us since April. let's get back maybe a Life on the Rocks, which a lot of people seem to read, which is
By the way,
lovely.
Life on the Rocks has been changed. It's no longer Life on the Rocks. It's under new ownership and new name. What's it
Well, then
called
let's
now?
get in. Let's get in. Let's get in.
Oh.
Let them know who we are.
Roll.
And
So
I think it's the
another
same
option,
editor.
Yeah,
Same
it's the
editor?
same, it's the same owner, but I think it's just a corporate, they probably made her do a corporate name change.
so
Okay,
another
so,
option
but-
for this, sorry,
yep, go ahead,
for,
Michelle.
so another option for this committee is we have Justin Schreier, who is the new communications director for the town. He will absolutely help you get your word out, your story out. He'll do an interview with you. He'll post it on the website. So many committees are using him as an avenue to get their stories out. So you should do the same, and I can put you in contact with him.
That's,
Great, Michelle.
yeah,
That's
we
nice.
met him at the cleanup day.
Okay, so
Um,
let's do an action item for Michelle to introduce Debbie and Steve. And Debbie and Steve to come back to this committee with a list of the messages and the types of articles or information we want to get out. So this committee can review and prioritize. And then with the permission of this committee and the prioritization that we all agree on, then Steve and Debbie, since you were already looking at a marketing plan for the community choice aggregation, maybe you can take the lead on working with, also bring in Josh, because Josh was focused on social media. But Josh, I guess if the three of you could do something without running into each other, but maybe the three of you would be the point people. If you guys could decide among yourselves, how we want to go to market, now that we know we have a communications director and we know some of the key things we want to advertise, let's do that. Okay, so action item for Michelle to make the introduction to Steve, Debbie, and Josh. Steve, Debbie, and Josh to put their heads together to come back to this committee with recommended messages that we want to get out. This committee to discuss at a future meeting what the priorities are, and part of that's going to change over time. And then we go to it. But you come back and report how we can use our communications director, what you recommend we do, what you recommend the priority is. We have a discussion, make a final priority list and action items to go forward. How about that?
Okay, it sounds like you're elevating the visibility of the Go Electric idea.
I'm
Beyond
no,
the research phase a little bit.
that is
No?
one of the items. That is one of the items that we would think about doing on the marketing. We don't have anything on Go Electric right now.
Okay,
We don't have anything.
you're saying prepare the marketing plan and the materials and as part of our research, and then we'll make a decision whether to really jump in and go for it.
Let me be clear.
Hmm.
This is for all of the things we're doing to raise our visibility. So
Yeah.
it's not just Go Electric. It's talking about
But
everything.
if we, I'm thinking, if we get the town outreach person involved, then that's that's pretty close to making it a town project.
We're not there yet. You're just going to talk to him and find out what he does, what he might help us with,
Okay.
how he can help. No content. We don't have any content. You three then talk about what our key marketing messages are and how we want to send it out and how our town's communication director can help. And then this committee talks about priorities. But I will tell
Okay.
you this, sitting here today, Go Electric is not ready to go. There's nothing to send them to.
Oh, totally. Oh, absolutely. No, it's been lying fallow for a long time.
Right, but that doesn't mean that there won't be in the future. And we got Hingham moving forward with it and taking the lead. And then it's going to be easier for us to see what happens with that and make a recommendation to the town on how to lever that. So I think we still don't have permission to do anything on Go Electric other than continue to investigate and monitor and watch, but we do have the ability to do marketing on our key messages, on key things.
Yeah, I
And
guess we're trying to,
Oops, sorry, Josh.
let's go ahead. I'm sorry, who's even talking? Is that Michelle?
No, it
Oh.
was,
Debbie.
Sorry.
everything.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking, like the marketing, like I guess, what is the goal at this? Is raise awareness? Is that what we're trying to do? I mean, because like if community aggregation isn't ready to be marketed yet, it's not live, and do you want to start getting the word out on it? Is that what we're trying to do?
That's what I want you three to figure out.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, let me just give you an example. Stuff is already happening. We had 5 articles in Life on the Rocks, right? Without a communication plan. So we're already creating marketing buzz. I received an email today from somebody who wants to interview us on the electric school bus demonstration project because they've gotten wind of it, right? Somebody probably started reviewing the school committee meetings or the select board meetings, right? This is how journalists get their leads. And then they find out, okay, who do we want to talk to? I'd rather not be reactive. I'd rather be proactive. Like we have a lot to say, we have a lot to share. I think there are things that are over time going to become more important and less important. As soon as community aggregation moves forward, we need to have a plan. So let's do a generic marketing plan, figure out what our priorities are, what our messaging is, what are some of the key items today that we can start pushing out. How do we want to push it out? And then be ready to go when some of the more important things that need a megaphone on a speaker, on an amplifier, like community choice aggregation, be ready for that because we've already sort of developed a marketing approach. Does that make sense? But I think you guys are the obvious ones because Steve and Debbie, you were slated on an action item to develop a marketing plan for the community choice aggregation. That's now delayed. Doesn't mean we don't have messages to get out. We know at some point we may want to be, the town may choose to be part of the regional Go Electric effort led by Hingham. Okay, that might be 2 years out, 3 years out, might be 1 year out. We don't know yet, but that will require a lot of marketing if we get the permission to proceed. Josh has been looking at social media. There's things we can, as individuals, start sending out on our successes and wins. We might get information from the FEMA BRIC that we won the first stage. Like we need to send that out to get people to want to do that. There's commitments of money that I would argue are going to be paid back, but that we need to start, laying the foundation now to continue to be successful. Our projects are getting bigger and bigger. And I think as much as we've been able to pluck the low-hanging fruit and the no-brainers, some of these, and I'll use Go Electric as an example, for some people, that's not a no-brainer, right? So we want to start laying the foundation now with some of our messaging on the credibility of this committee, the capability, and what we're getting done to create the political capital for when we get to something that maybe isn't a perfect no-brainer, but it makes sense. And we think that it should go forward. So I think it would be helpful if we had some thinking on that and could be more pushing it out as opposed to being reactive. All right, cool. Social media, anything on that, Josh, or did you just get wrangled into something that you were ready to say, we're not ready yet?
Well, I thought I came back and there was no go on social media.
I don't know. Do you want to reach out to Corey Evans, who is our liaison, see what he got feedback on with respect to our ability to do social media? Most certainly as individuals, we can amplify what's happening that's public. So it may just be us going on to 143 as individuals.
When Corey was on the call, when he was on the call, it sounded like he was for it. He didn't think there would be a problem. But then the next meeting, I thought you were saying that he said it wasn't.
Well, I guess if you could find out from him on the social media.
Sure, no problem.
Just so we know, are we sending it out? Do we create our own handle, or do we just toot the committee's horns as individuals on 143?
Yeah.
I mean, we can do, most certainly we can do the latter, and that might be just as effective. Okay, data report.
For the one for the landfill, I don't have, I didn't get any data from that, but I do have the charge station, website that I could pull up if you guys want to see that real quick.
Yeah, pull it up.
So, and the other thing is while I'm pulling this up, the carbon footprint assessment. Has anybody heard anything on that?
Well, that's sustainability and climate action plans. So that's the next.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
Okay. Am I sharing my screen or not?
You're talking about the MAPC hiring, right? And
Sorry,
what the
it's saying
status of that.
sharing is disabled. Host disabled.
Sorry about that. I have to give you access.
Okay.
There you go.
All right. Thank you. All right. You see my screen?
Mhm.
Okay. Well, this is, I mean, just looking at the last, I think I was looking at this because I thought it was interesting, just, because it's looking at a year, you were using, 1 megawatt. 1 megawatt was being used at our charging stations a year ago. And now, we're at 2.5 and we're halfway through the month. So, it's about 5. Looks like it's about 5. So it's gone up obviously 5-fold since last year, or since last July anyway. I can't go back any further than this. But that was something that kind of caught my eye. But outside of that, I'm not sure what you guys are seeing here that might be interesting.
So can I just make a comment? So I think this is actually very interesting because when we received this grant, we had promised that we would allow the community to charge their vehicles at our charging stations for a year at no cost. We have met our obligation, and the amount of energy usage that these charging stations are now costing the town, I think it's time to start reevaluating and look into charging for the usage. And I don't know if this committee is on board with that or.
Yeah, so we already voted to recommend to the select board that we start charging
Excellent.
for the charging. So we're going to start charging for the charging.
Perfect.
Yeah, once it got to 500 a month, 6,000 a year, I think was the point. And that was like in March, April.
Yep.
So, knowing we had a couple more months left on our obligation, I think we're past the year, but the select board agreed. And the question is, this committee needs to decide what's our recommendation. How do we charge? What do we charge?
Yeah, Michelle, I don't know if you recall, we had a discussion a couple of months ago about this. And you were trying to get information from Brianna on some of her back
Yeah.
emails.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't know how to determine, what charge point is charging us and how that rate gets determined. But, it seems to be the time to,
Sure.
start making that happen.
Yep. And Pat, I was able to pull the National Grid bills for energy usage at these charging stations. So we know what our monthly bills are coming in at. As far as charging, we got some recommendations from ChargePoint of what some other communities do. And some of it isn't just charging for a straight fee. Some of it is still allowing cars to charge for a 2-hour period, but the charges really set in if they don't move their vehicles, because that seems to be the biggest problem is people are just plugging in and not moving. And if you charge people when they've exceeded their 2-hour allotment, that's where you kind of can make up your your energy consumption money.
It's like a parking ticket.
And that's exactly what it is. And they say that communities are most effective doing that because you still want to draw people to your community by allowing them to charge. But after 2 hours, it's time for them to move along to another location or they will be charged.
Yeah, and speaking to Hingham, I know we're jumping into the next topic, but speaking to Hingham, that's what they're planning to do in their town parking lot is, and I don't even know if it's 2 hours, I think it might be less than that, is, you know, they're doing it through charge point, but they're limiting the time that you can keep your vehicle at that particular charger.
We're not using charge point.
I'm sorry?
We're not using charge point because of their high cost. We're going with flow.
Oh, really? Well, my information's old then, sorry.
Yeah, that's all right.
So Steve, what are you guys doing in Hingham?
So we got a grant for a couple charges. So we're going with 4 level 2 charges. And we already procured them through Flow. Then we just got a grant for 2 DC fast charges, and we're gonna be getting those. We will be going out to bid for the electrician side shortly. I just came up with all the specs and electrical, but we got a good grant for it. So, and that's going to be a Flow product as well. It's just that I guess their yearly fees, they don't have it, not even close to what charge point charges. So, but you can
So-
see. Go ahead.
So Steve, with your grant, is it similar to the grant that we had, whereas you have to allow the community to charge at no cost for a period of 1 year?
No, we could charge. We can charge immediately. We can technically under Chapter 164. We can't give away free power. So we're going to come up with a base rate for the charging.
Tanya, is this the time we had talked at our last meeting, sort of in, you know, about some sort of maybe revolving fund. I mean, is this the time in part of our proposal to talk about maybe we could capture this revenue?
Yes,
For our
this is
revolving-
exactly, so we did as part of the follow-up, you're absolutely right, Debbie, that we felt, Michelle, just for your information, we felt in addition to coming to the select board and recommending, we've already recommended we start charging. That the monthly price was high enough, it was enough, and we had met our obligation that we should start charging. They agreed. And we said we would come back with a recommendation on how to charge, how much to charge. And then in our discussions, after presenting to the select board, we discussed, I don't know if it was last meeting or the meeting before, we discussed that if we're going to start charging, we should recommend establishing a separate fund approach so that the money coming in pays for the money going out, whether it's a revolver or there were like 3 different structures that are available to municipalities. And we felt that if we were going to recommend that there be a charge, we should also recommend a structure to allow for the charge to offset the bill.
So are you thinking like revolving fund, enterprise fund, one of those funds?
Correct.
Okay, so.
Or municipal utility.
Okay, well, so, great ideas. I think, so one challenge that we'd have right now with that particular idea is, you know, I think, you know, we don't have a finance director at the current moment. Don Pyatt has moved on. Our town treasurer is moving on. So our finance department is a little light. So, this is something we could strive for perhaps in the future, but I just don't think the select board would have an appetite for this right now. So we could start charging. We'd have to figure out a mechanism to charge and an account to put it in, but I don't think setting up any of those funds right now would be feasible based on the current climate.
Or we could probably make the proposal that that be considered when there is
Yeah,
the
yeah.
proper,
Yeah, I mean, I think the fact we don't have staff doesn't preclude us from making the correct recommendation. Whether or
It
not it
does.
can be.
I was gonna say
implemented is different.
implementation may be difficult.
You're right. Well, that's different than what we would recommend. We can recommend it if it can't be implemented. That's just a reality. But the reasoning is, if we just start charging for this, sorry, that's my dog. If we start charging for this, it just comes into general revenues. And it doesn't guarantee the town that it's offsetting the charges to the town. 2/3 of that could be going to the schools.
True.
Right, so I think we wanted to make sure that if we start charging, that charging is offsetting at least completely, or at whatever level we think it should be offsetting the actual cost associated with the charging.
It makes complete sense. And
But again, I think that was how we were thinking of the recommendation. Before Dawn left, Corey Evans did speak to him about this. He was on board that this was the right way to think about it and approach it. But I think the implementation side of things. So I have on my list of to-dos to talk to Jack Creighton and Jean about their appetite for formalizing a structure for the things that the Alternative Energy Committee is doing. I was tasked with thinking more about the different structures and what might be the right structure to create, not just for charging. The charging stations are an obvious, simple thing, but it also would extend to some of the grants. If we have grants that are funding things that have revenue producing opportunities, it's the same thing. If we got the brick grant and it was voted to proceed, do we want to create a separate structure to manage that, where we have the grant, we have the expenditures going out, maybe a loan from the town for the funding, the money goes out, the reimbursement comes in from the federal government, and those assets then deliver and make revenues from the market or from our developer who's doing a profit sharing arrangement with us. So, this example, when we talked about the recommendation for charging, it made us realize that this is just one example of the many things we're doing where we have money coming in and money coming out. And this would be a simple example to make a recommendation on a structure. But your point is well taken, which is right now the implementation is maybe delayed. But I think we should at least consider the appropriate way to do it. So I guess, Michelle, you raised this. Do you have thoughts on what the pricing structure should be?
I have looked at other communities and what they're doing. And I started gathering all the data. I don't have a complete spreadsheet yet, but as soon as I do, which will probably be by the end of next week, I'll share it with you, and then that'll help you make your recommendation.
Okay, so let's take this up for the next meeting in August.
Okay.
And in the meantime, I've already spoken with Corey, who talked to Dawn before Dawn left, about this idea of an appropriate structure. I'll talk to Jack and Jean about what their thinking is, and they have a bigger picture view about what reality is and what we can do. And they might have some thoughts on how we might make our suggestion palatable. And I think if we're going to make a recommendation to charge, let's be very specific about what we're recommending so it's easy to implement. Functionally understand how it happens. Like, do we just talk to ChargePoint and say, so going forward, this is what we want to charge? Or, how does that work? So we need to know, we need to understand that. I don't know if you can talk to ChargePoint on that as well. And then the third thing would be we make a recommendation using this as an example of how we would propose structuring a structuring this so that we can ensure that the monies are coming in to pay for the monies that are going out.
Excuse me, I just want to recognize, thank you, Josh, for presenting the report. We got kind of lost in that, but
Yeah,
I want to find out, does that get attached to the minutes?
yeah, Josh, can you give a screenshot of that and send that to Debbie so we can
Yeah.
put it in the minutes? And then can you also, this is a bit imposing by me. So is it possible for you to take a screenshot of what ChargePoint is doing and gather the data for every month? Because if the reality is we can only go back 1 year in time, we may want to have a longer running record of what's happening. I hate to lose data.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I mean, if you can download the data, even better, but let's just make sure we're
I was,
downloading it. on a-
I was gonna see if what I can download here.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if that's okay, we'll make that an action item for you to do a monthly collection of the data. I think if we did it the first of the month, then that would be, you give us a monthly snapshot in time over time.
I think it already does that for you.
Okay,
I mean, it does it by month. It's up to
okay,
you.
but it stops after 12 months, right?
Correct. Yeah. It only goes up.
Yes, so we just want to keep collecting month to month so that we don't lose.
Let me see. I can do. Oh no, I can do a custom. I can do a custom report.
Oh, okay. So you just might have saved yourself some time.
Yeah.
If you can do a custom report, no need to do the monthly snapshot. If we're going to lose data because we're not collecting it, then let's figure out a way not to lose the data. That would be my recommendation.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'll play around with this a little bit. If I need to do that, I will. But I will. What do you want? Do you want a snapshot of like? Let me pull it back up because I want to know what you guys want a snapshot of. Just that first page, or you want a snapshot of this, or are you thinking?
I like both.
Yeah, this is the
Why not?
dashboard. The dashboard is got some good information. We're talking about this on the right. Average session length, it's 5 hours, but they're only doing 2 hours of charging.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that's a problem.
yeah, there's some good information. Yeah, I mean, I can snap these and
Yeah, just snap them. I think maybe the first of the month. You can pull up during the meetings, whatever is live, but we can put the first of the month into the minutes because I think it's just more helpful if we go month to month.
By the way, could I point out something interesting? This station status on the upper right. So
Mhm.
apparently there are two cars that are plugged in right this very moment. Those are probably Cohasset vehicles. Now, if you look down at the real-time power on the left, second row, it says real-time power, 0 watts. So those cars are fully charged and not pulling any current at the charging port.
Yeah, and this was on earlier, so they must have just filled up.
Yeah, earlier I noticed there were 3 cars that were plugged in and charging. So one of them was moved, or at least the port was just disconnected from the port. Now there are only 2, and they're not drawing any power, which means they're fully charged.
I think
Does
it's
this include the town vehicles? So if the town vehicles are plugged in there and they leave them, that's incorporated into this report, right?
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
think this includes the town hall, does it, Michelle?
No, this doesn't include the town hall.
Does not include the town hall.
No,
Oh,
So we
okay.
got 16 ports in town, plus there's what, 2 of them at the town hall?
Correct,
Or
18
four.
total
18 total, yeah.
at 5 locations.
Are those fixed, by the way, at the town hall? They weren't operating a
no,
month ago.
we're overriding them still at this point in time. There's no plan, there's no immediate plan to fix them right now. You can plug a car in there if you'd like.
So this is the
There's
town
no,
hall. I'm sorry, are you sure this doesn't include the town hall, or?
the town hall charging system has been down.
Okay.
So it may show there,
Yeah, okay.
but it's not actually working.
Got it.
All right, so let's get a screenshot of these for the minutes. I think this is helpful. Going forward, let's get a screenshot or it'd be nice to get a screenshot at the first of the month, just to be able to see how things are changing on a month to month, because we're getting into a sensitive period where we're going to make a recommendation regarding charging, and this is very helpful for us to support the case. And let's make sure we're not losing data if we're not collecting it, so that if you can do a customized data dump going all the way back to the beginning, that would be more relieving to me, even though we wouldn't have access to the pretty pictures.
What is, yeah, what's the beginning? What's the, when
I'd
is
say
it?
like, it was like February 2021.
Josh, I can actually pull the exact date.
Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely confirm that we can do a custom and go back, but yeah.
Okay, sustainability and climate action plans. Let me just also note that our speaker, and it was probably a good thing because we had a lot to talk about, but Matthew Parent was not able to join us because of a medical issue with his brother. So he texted back to Pat Gooding on that. So our thoughts and prayers are with him. Sustainability and climate action plans. So this was a question. We don't have anything in the town related to climate action goals or a climate action plan. However, we did receive a grant to hire somebody to do a greenhouse gas inventory. And Michelle, do you know what the status of that is?
Yep, so they're still working on it. I haven't had a status update lately. She was looking for additional data from our RTF, and it's just data that we don't have. Because they're looking for data as far back as our baseline year, which is 2017. And there's a piece of data missing, and she's trying to figure out if in fact this piece of data is a make it or break it to our plan. If not, she'll move ahead, but if so, we're gonna have to dig it up.
And what's RTF?
The transfer station at the DPW.
And it's their electricity and natural gas and diesel usage? Or what?
She's trying to get at hauling data. They're digging deep on everything. So I'm not really sure what she needs this data for. So that's why we're pushing back and saying, if you don't really need this data, let's move ahead without it. Because we don't see how it really impacts us because we have private haulers. We're not hauling with DPW equipment. So I'm really not sure what she's getting at.
Okay, and she's only collecting the greenhouse gas inventory for the town's usage?
Yes.
Okay.
So we can't do anything to quantify, anything else beyond like what the residents are using or producing. This is totally municipal use.
It's a municipal use.
Okay, well, let's start with that. And that I think is being entered into Mass Energy Insight, which is a Mass AEC program for the greenhouse gas inventory.
Yes.
Okay. All right, well, let's work on that. And then we'll just keep talking about the sustainability and climate action plans. And I think I promised that at a future meeting, I would talk about some of the findings that have come out of the Hingham effort related to climate action plans. Just as a high level, what do they look like? What's in them? Who's done them? Give some links on those. Okay. All right. Anything on matters not reasonably known in advance?
Just one item. I know, Tanya, you sent it out. I don't know if you sent it to everybody, that there's the open meeting law training on the 19th. Wilcott. Everybody get that?
Yes, on Monday.
But that's the 18th, right? Or 19th?
Maybe I'm wrong.
Monday, right?
It's Monday.
Actually, something else I should mention while we're talking about that. So as of right now, the remote meetings expire as of July 15th. We're waiting for further direction, but as of today, we have not received any. So your next scheduled meeting, I would suggest putting not only a Zoom link on there in the event that things change, but also a location. So we'll have to figure out where we can meet.
Okay, well, we're gonna try to meet in 2 weeks, so we better figure that out.
So let's see if we can't meet at Wilcott Commons in one of the conference rooms there.
Okay, so that's for the 28th. Is that okay with everybody to meet on the 28th? And that's to review the offer for third-party solar sites.
Okay with me. What time? We still 7:30?
7:30. Yep.
Okay, I'll make sure we schedule a room and get a Zoom link so we can cover all bases.
Very good. And then for the August meeting, are people going to be out? So I am out. I'm in England and Ireland for a wedding from the 9th to the 24th.
Sounds like fun.
It will be. I was planning on doing a call from the hotel, but if we are not allowed to have virtual meetings, does anybody else have a physical limitation in August?
So we had just heard in Hull from the town manager that the Zoom meetings were extended until March of 23. And then there's a bill in the legislature saying that past that, if you do an in-person meeting, it has to be hybrid. So there has to be a Zoom option, but that hasn't been passed yet. But we did hear yesterday that it was extended until March of 23.
Really? Okay.
That's what I heard. I
What?
didn't see anything, but that's what the town manager said yesterday.
Well,
All
that
right.
would be great if that is true.
Think of all
Yes.
the gas we'll save.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay, well, so
To be
let's
confirmed, but that's what I heard.
Okay, perfect. Well, so Michelle, get back to us on that. And I
Okay.
think we'll send out an agenda for the 28th in 2 weeks to talk about the solar. The goal would be to keep it to half an hour. We'll circulate the documents in advance. Debbie, in case you don't have the meeting minutes out by then, can you just send me a ping about what's on my action item list? Because I think I need to circulate that. I can make a note of it, but just want to make sure I don't forget.
Yeah, I will make every effort to get them done before that meeting. And Michelle, if you could send me the link to the recording,
Sure.
that is such a great backup.
Great. And then for August, if it is virtual, are people comfortable doing? So we'd normally do it on the 11th. So I guess.
I'll
I
also
really-
be traveling on the 11th, but I can possibly phone in to it.
Well, let me ask, do we have anything pressing? I guess the pressing issue is tied to a recommendation on charging. But we don't have information on that yet. Michelle, do you think you'll have information to report back on the 28th?
Why don't we shoot for the 28th? And
Okay, so let's do this. Just do an hour-long session or aim for an hour to talk about the solar energy arrays on the third-party sites and the charging recommendations for the electric charging stations. I would say if people are comfortable missing an August meeting, maybe we miss an August meeting. Do people feel like we have anything else pressing that we need to be meeting on in August?
Unless something urgent happens on community aggregation, I don't think so.
Oh. Okay, well, let's do this. Let's meet in 2 weeks, and as a reward, we will right now not plan on a meeting the second week in August. Give everybody the month off, regroup, have our subcommittees go off and do their things. Let's work through some of our action items so we can take it off the list. And then our next meeting would be on the 8th of September. How does that sound? So the next 2 meetings would be Thursday, July 28th. We're not meeting in August. And then the meeting after, unless there's an emergency that we need to come together for, like the brick grant comes out and we have our holy crap moment. Now that we've caught the tiger by the tail, what are we going to do? And then September would be on Thursday, the 8th. Okay. And we'll confirm that we can do these virtually. And I guess let me take a, oops, that's a fire alarm. Is the general consensus that we would prefer to keep doing it virtually in their entirety?
Yeah, I think it's easier.
I'm happy with that.
I am.
Okay, just want to make sure nobody's dying to get back into a room physically and spend the gas money to do that. And the emissions. All right, so if we can do it virtually, we'll keep doing it virtually. Excellent. All right. Michelle, thank you for everything you do for this committee. You are amazing and incredible and a huge part of the success of this committee. So thank you for sticking with us on this meeting and for everything you do to usher things through.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
All right, so we are now finished unless there's anything else.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Pat. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, no discussion needed. All in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, none. Okay, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Good night.
Night.
Thanks, guys.
Everyone.
Night.